You are listening to the Free Spirit Astrology Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Free Spirit Astrology Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and walking with me on this spiral of life. Yet another level, another layer, but always moving. August is here. Feels like it was just January, but August is here. And August did not come to play, came with a lot of Leo flair for drama. A lot that we have going on with Mars this week and the above, so below. It's a lot. I sat with these transits and I flipped it and turned it and remixed it and tried to figure out how I wanted to translate all of this information. But if I can sum it all up in a few words, the energy for the week is giving balance and perspective. So this is a week where we are trying to understand, or maybe we do understand, that people have their own perspectives. Everyone has a particular point of view based on how things were modeled, how information was taught, and how we grew up to perceive and understand ourselves and the world around us. So, with that in mind, this week is still going to bring some uncertainties and some triggers and some tensions, and assumptions will be made. But also, broad understandings, more insight to who we are and what type of things we bring to the world that we could have been flying under the radar about, and some mutual agreements or some agreements to disagree. So let's get into this astrology for the week. Our first major transit is not happening until Wednesday, August 6th. That is when Mars is going to leave the sign of Virgo and enter the sign of Libra. Now, Libra is Venus's sign. Venus is Mars' girlfriend, and they're completely different. There's a lot of tension between Mars and Venus, fighting tension and sexual tension. So Mars is our planet of fighting and war. And in the personal lives of people, it is our ambition, and it's how we go for the things we want. It is how we pursue those things we want. And we know Venus is how we attract things. And Libra is the masculine air sign of Venus. Did I say Venus? Libra is the masculine air sign of Venus that is usually associated with friendliness, diplomacy, class, beauty, being refined, fairness and justice, equality, trying to be on the same page, and just really considerate of the other. So totally opposite of what Mars stands for, because Mars rules Aries, which is opposite to Libra. So, but we get a beautiful synthesis. So sometimes when we get opposites, we get this creative tension that has its beautiful qualities, and of course everything has a shadow. So when Mars enters the sign of Libra, we could be navigating the ability to see things from different perspectives, toiling with decisions and indecision, mental conflicts that create a lot of anxiety. And this could stem from not knowing what action to take, wanting to take action, but not sure of what type of action needs to be taken, and feeling like we need to take action under a lot of pressure, but also being considerate of other people. There is a willingness to negotiate when Mars is in Libra. And depending on what part of the spectrum you are on, as far as asserting ourselves or letting things fly to keep the peace, we could find ourselves more inclined to think before we react, or to air our grievances out if we normally tend to smooth things over to keep the peace. So Mars and Libra, you'll see a lot of people thinking about the social welfare of others, fighting for the injustices of others. There is a lot to do with diplomacy and political things. But Mars and Libra is very conflict averse. Now, it is a sign and an energy of war, but that's because it's Mars, and Libra has a lot to do with political and diplomatic things. But some of the more problematic things we can see with Mars and Libra is a building up of tension because Mars can't fight like it wants to. So we'll see people toiling with people pleasing and appeasing others and placating others and avoiding certain topics just to keep the peace. And the ability to really swallow the anger and be really concerned about how somebody else is taking our words and our actions versus how having courage to think about how we need to be treated. But Mars is going to Mars no matter what. No matter what flavor Mars is going to Mars. So all that peacemaking is going to build up. It got to go somewhere. You know, we think we eat the conflict, but the conflict is steady growing inside of us. So when we have Mars and Libra, eventually that peacemaking is going to leak out. And then Mars is going to turn a new page and can be extremely resentful, can be very passive aggressive and calculated and manipulative and jealous, can be very slow to congratulate and a little quicker to nitpick and rap insults and jokes. So those are some of Mars's shadow sides when it's in Libra, and just really throwing rocks, hiding hands, very nasty, very like that passive aggressive, mean girl, nice type of fighting. But you know, you saying some real harsh shit in a sweet tone. And at the culmination of Mars and Libra's anger, before it has an outburst, it will leave. It will avoid. It will fade the scene, or it will completely shut down. You know when Mars and Libra is pissed because they turn ice cold and they shut you out because they don't want you to get them into a space where they're being Mars and Aries like. But that doesn't mean they can't. So, this is a week where we could see some of those things playing out in relationships and interactions, and we may need to come into some type of balance with creating space for the needs of others. So, if you're more like Mars and Aries, who will totally crash out and have a temper tantrum and assume before they ask or think, maybe this is you needed to come into some more Mars and Libra balance and think and consider others and other perspectives and look at things from both sides or objectively before you respond or react. Or if you are the type of person who is very Mars and Libra, like maybe you have Mars and Libra and you tend to avoid conflicts with others to keep the peace and you don't say things, maybe this is a time where you air out a grievance, acknowledge something hurt you, and have the courage to talk about it. Have the courage to put your needs and wants on the table as well if you're in a negotiation. So almost immediately when Mars goes into Libra, it's going to make a series of aspects like all over the place. It's going to create this big grand triangle in the sky because it's going to make a trine to Uranus and Gemini. So that is our great revolutionary, we won't be controlled by the system type energy. We're breaking out of anybody's prisons or confinements or rules. And then it's going to make a trine to Pluto and Aquarius, which is destabilizing any structure or thing that is meant to overpower and oppress us so that we may live life on our own terms and in our own authenticity without being dictated or ruled by other people. And then also, Mars and Libra is going to make oppositions to Saturn and Neptune, both retrograde in the sign of Aries. That's a lot of shit going on. First and foremost, Mars and Libra making this trine to Uranus is going to bring sudden ideas, shocking revelations. You might hear some crazy stuff on the news, like what's new, but also like, oh, did y'all see what happened? Stuff like that, weather stuff. They're going to be realizations and downloads about things that just don't work for us anymore. Just some like, you know what? I'm starting to see that this is not what it's really panning out to be. And stuff that's really coming into our awareness, like in the shower and in dreams and stuff like that. And perhaps this is a creative Uranian non-conventional person who's coming alongside you, or just you happen to meet, and they are dropping gems that gives breakthroughs, that sparks something wild and exciting, and that really pushes you to take a chance on something, do something that you may have never thought that you would do in terms of business and pursuits and creative projects. Or maybe you're taking a course like astrology, or you're adding human design or tarot or something to the mix. And this is also a time where when Uranus is in Gemini, we're finding our soul tribe, we're finding our star family, we are finding people that we don't have to explain ourselves to, they just get us. So that's kind of what this is signifying, as well as Pluto and Aquarius. But Mars opposing Saturn in Aries is going to feel like a hard stop. It's going to feel like a stop, go back to the beginning type of energy. There's going to be tension and conflicts, and this could be internal, or this could be with another person. There's going to be things that block us, or that feel like they block us. There are going to be delays, blocks and delays that cause us to be really frustrated, which I can attest to because Amazon got my baby backpack blocked and delayed, and I'm gonna need y'all to come on and bring it before school starts, because I'm not about to play with y'all. But I'm gonna just, I'm gonna hold a different perspective. Maybe some things is backed up. I know it's a lot going on in the world, okay? But there could be misunderstandings this week between the Libra and Aries parts of life, or between Libran and Arian like energy. So between somebody who may be a little more passive and a person who may be a little more fiery, people trying to get on the same page, people trying to get each other to understand one another. Negotiations and collaborations could have good natured attempts, but don't seem to pan out. Or we could just get mixed signals from people. We could feel like people are acting weird, cold, and distant. And we could feel a little depressed, taken aback, discouraged, or irritated about stuff. And then the very next day, Mars is going to oppose Neptune in Aries, because Neptune and Saturn are literally almost a minute apart. So that is bringing even more confusion and uncertainty, heavy shades of gray type energy in the things that we want to do, our projects, like the things that we are trying to launch, the things that we're creating, our relationships, stuff with our kids. It could be in just so many different things. There's a lot of irritations going on, which Mars definitely hates. Mars wants to make a decision, and Mars doesn't like indecisiveness. It's like, what am I gonna do with this? I need to tell me where I need to pull the plug or execute. I need to make something happen. Tired of waiting. Yeah, we could have people really frustrated and wanting to disconnect and be in their caves while they sort out a lot of stuff that's going on inside of themselves. So we want to avoid making assumptions, because when Neptune is in the mix, we could take somebody else's actions or inactions as totally out of context. We could think somebody's acting funny, or somebody's giving us the cold shoulder. And in some situations, people could be being like misleading and deceptive. And with Mars and Libra, of course, absolutely being nasty and passive aggressive and saying one thing but acting another way. So this is just an opportunity to check in, avoid making assumptions, check in with your people, ask for clarity. If you are feeling icy and distant, maybe reach out to one of your star family, soul tribe friends and say, hey, I'm in the cave this week. I'm feeling a little just all over the place. And just do a quick check in, and we never know. Just reaching out and being vulnerable can lend some support and an unexpected solution in some type of way, just by saying the thing out loud and telling people for being weird. Then Mars in Libra is making this trine to Pluto in Aquarius, which is making this three-way triangle situation of realizing things, transforming things, and pivoting and making changes, but also looking at our own shadow selves. So if we do see people and experience people being weird, we want to fall back. We don't want to get too clingy and, all in people's stuff. We don't want to jump into any intense people pleasing and placating people, because that's a Mars and Libra type of shadow signification to temperature check. And that's just going to backfire. But not only that, it's going to really backfire how you feel about yourself. That's going to build some residue in you, because you've done a lot of work. I'm pretty sure a lot of people listening to this have their certificate in people pleasing, right? Because we tend to attract the energy that we embody. And I'm definitely a recovering people pleaser. So there's a lot of people listening to this that are also recovering people pleasers. And so you did a lot of work to get out of that shit. Last 3 years, you've been making some things shake. Last 6 years, you've definitely been making some things shake. And we don't want to find ourselves back into that type of energy. And we also want to advocate for ourselves, because not only are we recovering from people pleasing, we're recovering from dimming our lights and playing something small. So, if there's something that we need, we just want to check in. We have hopefully safe spaces and safe friends. And if not, then we got a whole nother conversation to have. We also want to look in the mirror. and notice where we are projecting and where we are taking something the wrong way. We want to examine if we are exerting some type of control, doing some shady shit, throwing out manipulation tactics, gaslighting, so that we can create these barriers that we think we're creating to protect us from other people's control, to protect us from other people getting the best of us or getting the drop on us or trying to exert some type of control. We want to really look at our motivations behind why we are responding or acting the ways that we are acting. And it's really good to have that deep introspection, because if you don't do that shadow work and look at yourself, you actually become the perpetrator who exerted power and control and manipulation over you at one point. You become the bad guy that tries to control other people just like somebody tried to control you. And you're doing that because you don't want to be overpowered or taken advantage of anymore. But we have to understand that, everything exists in a balance and on a spectrum. Nobody is inherently good, nobody is inherently bad. And this is why perspective is the big, thing for the week. So this week is bringing deep introspection about how our soul wants to grow, and, just seeing how some of these dynamics inside of us could be holding us back, and where we might need a little more courage to speak up, and where we might need a little more compassion to not make certain things about us. Also, we might see other people placating, jumping all in somebody else's boat, being extra, abandoning themselves, or being ugly to somebody else and not doing their own work. And I'm not telling you not to bring it up to somebody. I'm just saying, if you try to persuade, push the issue, interject, make somebody see something that they're not ready to see, that's going to blow up into a conflict, and it's not going to be good. It's just not the week to do that. You can't force anybody to do their work. Everyone has to face their own shit and do their own work. So instead of trying to persuade somebody or convince them that they are out of line or they doing too much or they not doing enough, let's just hold space, be a light on the hill for someone else who may need support trying to find something right now. Finally, Saturday, August 9th, we have a full moon in Aquarius. And we know that the full moon is the opposition between the sun and the moon, letting us know that whatever goes on in the dark will always come to light. So the full moon is bringing revelations and downloads, and manifestations are starting to show up. The seeds are starting to bloom from a previous time, maybe from February 2024 when we had a new moon in Aquarius, maybe from another time, answer prayers, and things just kind of coming to a point of realization in a certain way. So, because this is an opposition in the Aquarius and the Leo parts of life, the moon is in Aquarius, the sun is in Leo, we can gather that this is an illumination of how we are or not connecting to our authentic expression. There's something that somebody tried to suppress or shame us for, and that turned out to be your superpower. Turns out that's your gift. And so the sun in Leo is saying, hey, it's time to put that superpower into the world, which I'm pretty sure you know by now because we've been having, experiencing layers and breadcrumbs of this thing. And the sun in Leo is also saying, in all the ways that you thought you were supposed to show up in the world because it was giving you or getting you more results and more praise, that's probably not it. And then we have the moon in Aquarius with Pluto there also showing you this is exactly what you love to do. This thing that comes natural to you is exactly the lane you're supposed to be in. And you need to be outside. You need to be on a stage. You need to be in the public eye. The magic that you carry is meant to shine, not just to be admired and to be praised, but that too. But it's so the people who need your light can find you. So this full moon is also talking about balance, and the balance between needing to be seen, wanting to be seen, and how that actually contributes to your life calling and how that contributes to the assistance of other people. Because when you step on the stage or you speak through your book or you ditch the 5-year plan and show up in the world doing exactly what just lights you up with no plan, knowing that just being yourself is the plan, you help so many other people. You give people permission to unlearn, to rewild, to reconnect to their own joy, and to choose themselves, leading by example, showing the world, showing yourself that when you choose you, you choose to help so many other people. So we can't forget about Mercury retrograde in Leo. That's co-present with the sun. They were in a tight space last week, but they're getting some space, but they're still talking to each other. And then across the way, the moon is co-present with Pluto and Aquarius. And this dynamic is giving us insights about the next step. This is also revealing why something is not working or didn't work in the past. And now we are starting to realize and be grateful that it didn't, and why it was never meant to work out. For some of us, we are on a path that we really enjoy and we love, but we feel confused and foggy right now. And this is just spirit saying you don't have all the information yet. So right now, your job is to pause and reflect and congratulate yourself for getting this far, and congratulating yourself for the mastery that you have already obtained. Because sometimes we're so busy looking at the path ahead and the next thing, we don't take times to acknowledge all that we have accomplished. So congratulate yourselves for all the things that you've already done, how far you've come, all the steps you've already completed. And then also ask yourself during this full moon, am I doing what I really want to do? Am I aligned to the path that's really calling me? What type of fears or doubts are holding me back right now? And can I believe that what I want to manifest can happen even if I don't see it? Can I believe that I truly get to serve the world just by waking up and being myself? Can it be that easy? And am I willing to let it be easy? And then maybe we release and surrender. Maybe we don't do anything and we just pause and get ready for the next step. So that's all I have this week. May we be open to the perspectives of other people and show some grace to ourselves and maybe to somebody else. And at the most, can we be neutral about how somebody else feels about something, especially if it's not our shit? Let other people have their thoughts and opinions, and also let's let ourselves have our own thoughts and opinions, and not tuck ourselves in and minimize ourselves for anybody. And let's not try to exert power and dominion over anybody. It's all about balance and perspective. So may it be easy this week, even in the midst of some tangled up astrology. Release what's not yours and make room for all the things that are for you. So that's all I have for this week. I'm going to talk to y'all next week. I hope you took something amazing from this, and see you in the next one. Bye. You are listening to the Free Spirit Astrology Podcast.